A third-party tool scored my own site's inbound link profile at 48% spam. I had run the same check on 3 sellers first and got 16, 26, and 44 back. So I ran it on myself out of curiosity. Worse than every seller I had been sizing up, including the one I nearly walked away from. I spent the next hour drafting a disavow file. That hour was wasted, and worse than wasted, because if I had finished the job, I would have made things measurably worse on a site that had done nothing wrong. So here is what that number actually is, what it is built from, and the one thing it can never tell you. What the number is measuring. A spam score is a vendor's estimate of how much of what points at you looks automated, low quality, or bought. That is the entire scope of the claim. It is a model output. Google does not publish a figure like this, has never published one, and nothing in your Search Console account corresponds to it. A company built a model, fed it their own crawl, and put a percentage on the front of the report because a percentage sells. I am not sneering at it. I pay for the data and it earns its keep, but the percent sign does quiet work in the wrong direction because percentages feel like measurements when they are opinions with a decimal point. What actually goes into it? Nobody publishes the exact formula, and any vendor telling you they do is selling you something. You can reverse most of it from watching what moves the number. The heaviest input is what the linking domain does with its own outbound links. A site pushing 11,000 outbound links across 400 pages is behaving like a directory, and everything it links to inherits a share of that judgment. That is the strongest signal in the model, and it says nothing at all about you. Second, thin content signals on the linking side. Pages with 100 words of text wrapped around a link block. Auto-generated tag archives, scraped copies of somebody else's article with the links rewritten. Third, pattern matching on the shape of the link. Exact match commercial anchors repeating across dozens of domains. Links sitting in a footer on every page of a site instead of inside an article. Clusters of domains registered in the same month on the same registrar, all pointing at one target. Fourth, and this is the quiet one, whether the linking domain has any measurable audience. A domain with no visibility that still publishes and still links out is either very new or a farm, and the model cannot separate those. Read that list back. Almost none of it is about your site. It is a score of your neighborhood, assembled from decisions other people made and you never agreed to. The denominator nobody looks at. Here is the part that switched the panic off. My profile at the time was 108 referring domains and 327 links in total. That is a small site by any measure. 48% of 108 domains is about 50 domains flagged. 50. I can open 50 domains in a browser in 20 minutes, and I did, and they were exactly what you would guess. Scraper mirrors, 2 or 3 directory clones running the same template. And a handful of aggregator sites republishing RSS feeds with the links left intact. Nobody attacked me. I not bought a single one of them. That sediment lands on every property that stays online long enough to get indexed, and it arrives at roughly the same absolute rate whether you are large or tiny. So the percentage is mostly a function of how big your legitimate profile already is. One of the sellers I checked had 7,800 referring domains and came back at 26%. Drop my 50 junk domains onto their profile and their score barely twitches. Drop their proportional share onto mine and I am up in the 70s. On a young or small site, the number is close to meaningless, and it is precisely the owners of young and small sites who panic about it. The metric shouts loudest where it means least. 2 tools, 2 answers, 1 site. This is what finished the argument for me. Around the same period, I crawled that same domain for a different reason and counted the links pointing in. I got 16. The backlinks vendor said 108 referring domains. My own crawl of what I could physically verify said 16 live followable links. Both are correct inside their own definitions. One counts every domain the vendor has ever seen a link from in its index, including dead pages, including links removed a year ago, including nofollow. The other counts live do-follow links I could confirm that afternoon. If 2 honest measurements of the same profile disagree by that much, the percentage stacked on top of one of them is a statement about that vendor's index and very little else. The site was fine. The strongest evidence that this is a screening tool sits right in front of me, and it is deeply boring. That 48% domain was indexed, had no manual action in Search Console, no message, no warning of any kind, and was selling do-follow placements at $250 each to buyers who ran their own checks before they paid. If 48% meant what people assume it means, that site would have been in trouble long before a vendor got around to scoring it. That is the whole tell. A metric that flags a healthy property is doing screening, and screening throws false positives by design, because the alternative is missing the real ones. The hour I wasted. Let me be specific about how badly I got this. because it is the most useful part. My first thought was that somebody had attacked me. Negative SEO, a link farm aimed at my domain, that entire genre of story that circulates because it is more interesting than the truth. My second move was to open the disavow tool. Both wrong, and the second one wrong in a way that could have cost me real money. I had no evidence of an attack. I had a vendor percentage and a bad feeling, and I was about to hand Google a file telling it to ignore links I had never once looked at. Why disavow is usually the wrong lever. The disavow file is a blunt instrument built for one situation, and that situation is rarer than the tool's popularity suggests. It is there for a manual action or for when you know for certain you bought bad links at scale and you are cleaning up after yourself. Outside those two, you are guessing, and the cost of guessing runs one way. Links you disavow that were quietly helping you do not come back when you change your mind. The file takes effect silently. Nothing confirms that anything happened, and no readout afterwards tells you what it did. You cannot measure the result, which means you cannot learn from it. Google's public line for years has been that it is reasonably good at ignoring junk links on its own, and that is at least consistent with the incentives, because if it were false, then negative SEO would be trivial and every ranking would be a lottery. So the honest position. Manual action, disavow. 1,000 links you bought in 2019 and can still identify. Disavow those. A percentage you did not like on a dashboard, do nothing and go open the actual domains first. I opened mine. There was nothing worth disavowing. What it is genuinely good for. Now the useful half. I am not telling you to ignore the metric, I pay for it every month. The first real use is screening a seller's inventory before money moves. That is what I bought the credits for, and it earns them back on the first bad purchase it prevents. When someone offers you a placement, you get an authority score in the pitch and nothing else. Running a spam check on their domain takes seconds and costs about 2 cents, and what comes back is a reason to open 20 of their referring domains and look at them yourself. That is the whole trick. The score points at where to spend your attention, and the attention is the expensive part. It is pricing information, not a gate. The mistake people make when buying is turning it into a threshold. 30% and below buy. Above that, walk away. I bought the placement at 44% and I would make the same call again. Real company, real product, an audience that overlapped mine, and the page where the link made obvious sense. Their 44 came from being a large public-facing site that had gathered the usual sediment, same as mine, only more of it because there was more of them. Where the number should move is the price. A 40% domain ought to cost you less than a 15% domain. And if the seller will not budge on that, you have learned something about how many other buyers they have this month. Also consider that a hard cutoff would have rejected me. I was the dirtiest domain in that comparison, and I know exactly what my own inventory is worth, what it is genuinely good for, too. The second real use is the one almost nobody sets up, and it beats the first. Watch your own number over time. Not the level, the change. 48% tells you very little on its own. 48% last month and 65% this month means something happened. And that is worth 20 minutes of your day to go and find. Maybe a popular page of yours got scraped and propagated across a network. Maybe you left comments open on an old post. Maybe a partner you swapped links with sold their domain. A level describes your neighborhood. A delta describes an event. Events are actionable and levels mostly are not. I log the number monthly now in the same row as the outbound link count from the audit I ran on that site. 2 numbers, 1 row a month, 30 seconds of work. The thing it can never tell you. Here is the limit that matters most if you buy links. No spam score, no authority metric, no vendor number will ever tell you whether a specific link helped you. That is not a gap in the tooling waiting on a better product. It cannot be solved. Rankings move for a dozen reasons at once. Most links take months to do anything, and you cannot run the counterfactual because you cannot unbuy the link and replay the quarter. So anyone telling you a link on a clean domain is worth more than a link on a dirty one is making an inference. It is a reasonable inference and I act on it every time I buy. But it is an inference, and the confidence people put in these numbers is borrowed entirely from the fact that they arrive with 2 significant figures attached. What I do now? Before buying, pull the spam score, the referring domain count, and the total backlink count for the seller's domain. 2 cents, use it to decide how hard to look, never whether to buy. Then open the page they are proposing and read what else it already links out to, which no API will do for you. On my own sites, pull the same number monthly and write it in a row. Chase the jumps, ignore the levels, and the thing I no longer do. I do not reach for the disavow file because a percentage frightened me. I did that once, lost an hour to it, and the correct move all along was to open 50 domains in a browser and find that my site had simply been online long enough for other people's junk to land on it. The vetting checks I run and the numbers they returned are all at theseodesk.com. Subscribe for SEO that has actually been tested.